Welcome to the Great Women in Compliance podcast, sponsored by Corporate Compliance Insights with Hema Lomax and Lisa Fine. This episode is a special one with me, Ellen Hunt, hosting a conversation with our esteemed guest, Teri Cotton Santos. Teri and I go way back, and she is one of those individuals that always leads with grace, acts with forethought, and has been a friend, mentor, and confidant of mine for these many years. So I am thrilled and honored when she agreed to sit down and talk with me. Teri currently serves as the Chief Compliance Officer at Phillips 66, a position she assumed in September of 2023. Previously, she held the role of Vice President and Chief Compliance Officer at HF Sinclair, and before that, she worked as an advisor in risk management at Hoffman Barnes and held an in-house counsel position at Eli Lilly, including General Counsel for the Asian Operations and Assistant General Counsel for Litigation and Legal Compliance. Teri is the cover girl for the August special edition issue of the CEP magazine, highlighting her thought leadership in compliance and ethics, and Compliance Cosmos Network also did a spotlight on her under Meet Teri Cotton Santos, Ethics and Compliance Built to Scale, including her role in shaping modern compliance strategies. If you have a chance, I encourage you to read both of these articles. Teri, is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know about your career journey?
First of all, Ellen, thank you so much for that very warm welcome and for including me in this phenomenal podcast. I never imagined that I would hear the words cover girl in my resume or my bio. But the one thing I would say, and I did say it in this article with CEP magazine, is how important it is to have a community of compliance professionals to help you along your journey. So that's really been a significant benefit within my career.
Yeah, amen to that, right? It makes all the difference when you have a phone a friend, when you've got people who sponsor you and mentor you and are advocates for you. So that's really what the Great Women in Compliance podcast is all about, is bringing the elevator back down and lifting people up. So one of the things that I know about you is that you made the connection between risk and ethics and compliance really early on. And what experiences early in your career helped you to make that connection and shape your approach to compliance and ethics?
Ellen, I would say it became most apparent to me when I found myself in the role of Chief Compliance Officer and Chief Risk Officer for a financial services company. Financial services regulators at the time had a real focus on operational risk, including the ways in which compliance risks might present threats to financial services companies. And so my company at the time was really thinking in the forefront of how do we make sure that we are managing not only our compliance risks within the risk management framework, but that all of the company's risks were being appropriately managed and addressed. And in that role, I discovered a number of things. Number one, that there really is a synergy or a nexus in how you approach compliance. It has to be forward-looking. It has to be about reading what's happening in the environment that potentially could have some negative consequences on your business. It also, and I learned this about risk because we always tend to think of risk as something that you want to avoid, but some risk could present opportunities depending on what the business's strategy and approach are. So the other thing that I would say I learned is very connected, and I would call it a triad, is strategy. That ethics and compliance needs to be integrated into a company's strategy, because the work that we do as ethics and compliance professionals is not only about helping the business navigate the regulatory environment, but it really is about maintaining trust and the right to operate. So I think the connection of these three things became quite visible to me in this role. And I think that we are seeing this more and more every day as the regulatory environment evolves and has various impacts on the businesses that we operate.
Isn't it amazing how all connected we are, but yet sometimes we still operate in silos as if what we're most interested in and where our expertise is the most important to the organization instead of understanding we're like a pool of fish, right? We've got to be swimming together. Otherwise, we don't get anywhere together. So,
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
and when you think about if you knew then what you know now, what would challenges or cultural legal differences or leadership lessons that you've learned that you wish you knew sooner in your career, but now also serve you really well where you are at and what you're doing?
It's really funny, Ellen, because as I think about this, it's so obvious to me now, but it really is the importance of trust and how trust underscores everything we do as ethics and compliance professionals. At my company, one of our values is honor. And so we say, go with honor. And what that means to us is that we operate with integrity. We accept accountability for our actions because accountability and integrity earn trust. And trust is everything. And it really is. And it's so important in terms of getting the initiatives that we want to advance in order to not only protect the company, but to build the company's brand as a business that operates with integrity. Having that trust amongst your stakeholders is so critically important. And so really thinking about how do you build trust? How do you earn it? How do you sustain it? And sustaining it is very important because it is an ongoing effort. And so really being thoughtful about engaging in activities like deep listening, making sure that my team and I are showing up as experts in the work that we do. That underscores our trust. That we are taking accountability for our actions and frankly, helping the organization hold others accountable for their actions. So the importance of trust, again, it's so obvious today, but really investing in that as a way to help drive the ethics and compliance forward and drive the culture forward pays significant dividends.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that it seems so fundamental to so many of our relationships in life that we often don't
Mm-hmm.
even think about how it operates in the workplace? I think you're spot on about the trust because nobody's going to come and ask you a question or include you in a strategy conversation or care what you think about risk if they don't trust you. Why would they?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really what makes a difference. So, also, when you think about all that you've accomplished in your career, do you have any proud moments or initiatives and strategies that you're just really very proud of?
That is a great question. I'm really proud of a lot of the work that I've done throughout my career. I have had the privilege of building or maturing corporate compliance programs in a number of highly regulated industries. And there were moments when I, like many compliance officers, felt I had a bigger mandate than the resources, felt that I didn't have enough to do the things that needed to be done in order to deliver to the company an effective compliance program. But what I have learned through that is the importance of being resilient and resourceful. And so even in those times when I had to be scrappy, it's really helped me to be more of an ethics and compliance professional. And it's really helped me to have open conversations with the business about our resourcing and what our resourcing means and what we can do and what we can't do with our sourcing. So setting expectations. So I offer that up, Ellen, because I think there are moments in our career when we think, I just don't have enough or I just can't do enough. And we fail to recognize, perhaps in the moment, the ways in which we are growing professionally because we have learned to be resourceful and resilient.
Yeah. It's interesting as many of us slide into the end of the year and think about our budgets and what we're going to do and trying to align with the risk assessment, the enterprise risk assessment, as well as your compliance risk assessment and the strategy. One of the things I've really been focusing on is things that have high impact but low effort. And certainly I'm this way, and I think maybe a lot of ethics and compliance professionals are. I'm okay. I'm going to dig in and do the work. And then sometimes you go, you spent 100 hours on that, and maybe it didn't make a difference. I think we have to start thinking a little bit better and smarter on ah, does it really make a difference? Are some of the things that we're doing, are they worth continuing as we grow? Are they aligned? Sometimes we keep doing what we've always been doing, and maybe it's time for a change. So that's a framework I've been using. I ask myself, okay, what's the impact here? And how much effort is it going to take? Which also leads to the question of, and what am I going to take off the plate? Because we're always shifting the pieces of the puzzle, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it all sometimes, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that point that you're making about impact, Ellen, is essential to be a part of the thinking around how do we be resourceful. Because when you have limited resources, you really do want to make the best impact. You don't want to be that compliance officer who feels that she cannot deliver for the organization just because of resourcing. It's about figuring out how do I have the biggest impact with the resources I have. And ironically, once you have that impact, you are much better positioned to garner additional resources. So it becomes a cycle, if you will.
Yeah. I think trust amplifies trust, right? The more you give, the more you get, the more you have, the more, it returns itself in value and investment. So tell us a little bit about getting to Phillips 66 and taking the helm there, and what was that like since joining? How do you approach building and enhancing the compliance culture there?
hmm I was really excited to get an outreach from a recruiter about this role at Phillips. I had been working in the oil and gas industry, as you mentioned, and within our industry, there are certain companies that are very highly regarded for their culture, for their strategic thinking, and their innovation. And I really felt that Phillips was one of those companies. So I welcomed the opportunity to be a part of the team. And frankly, I report to the General Counsel. She is a phenomenal woman. And the story that she told during my interview process about the vision that she had not only for her legal group, but also for the compliance group in terms of really delivering on high impact work in order to help the business drive the strategy forward while managing risk, that was the sort of program that I wanted to build, where the team is well positioned to be proactive, strategic business advisors and not just have a paper compliance program. And so that really has been my approach as we have looked at the work that we're doing and really restructured ourselves in a way that allows us to have the greatest impact on the business while mitigating risk. And there have been a number of things that have happened in the regulatory environment in the first 8 months of the year, particularly in the area of international trade and tariffs. As a part of our reorg, we put a strong emphasis on making sure we had capabilities that could help the business navigate those changes. And that's really turned out to be a great thing for the business. And for my team, who are managing those risks in a way that they are walking alongside the business, really understanding their strategies and bringing their regulatory expertise to bear in helping the business figure out what are some of the things that we can do to navigate these risks and really be successful in this environment. They love that work. And it's much more rewarding than solving problems on the back end, or I should say fixing problems on the back end. And it really gives them a much more interaction and engagement with our business clients. So really, my journey at Phillips, I'm privileged to have the support of a leader and a management team and a board who understands the value of ethics and compliance and the role that it can play not only in protecting the company and enabling the company preserve its value, but in actually supporting and driving a business forward. And that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. And it makes me think about how trust and purpose go hand in hand, right? When you
Yes.
have trust
Mm-hmm.
within your environment, you're aligned on purpose. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect. Really, people in the organization don't understand what's the purpose of ethics and compliance. Why would I trust them to know my strategy or what my goals are, or to even go and ask a question about a problem? Because all they're going to do is investigate me. And then that's going to be a mess and it's going to take weeks or months and it's going to be disruptive. And I can solve my problems anyway without them. And you know the drill. But it's just interesting to me also how things amplify on themselves. When you have alignment on purpose, of course, you trust
Mm-hmm.
each other more. So it's
Absolutely.
goes in circles, goes in circles. So back to being that cover girl. When you think about it, what the one of the focuses was compliance built to scale. So tell us what that means to you, and especially what it means in an evolving industry like energy that you're in. It's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, built to scale to me means that as the regulatory environment evolves and changes, as the business grows, evolves, and changes, compliance is well positioned to provide the support that the business needs in order to be successful in achieving its strategic objectives. So it really is about making sure your program is fit for purpose and making sure you're working with leaders to ensure that the culture is also fit for purpose. It's about sustainable success. It's a continuous improvement, monitoring what's happening in the world around you and being able to translate for the business what it means from a regulatory compliance perspective. That's what built to scale means for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's not
Mhm.
always so easy to achieve sometimes because all the things we're talking about, alignment with purpose, having trust, maybe not feeling that you have the right resources, not understanding really where you should be supporting the business, it all goes together, right? You can't scale without having those fundamental things in place. On those two articles, what would be the key takeaways you want readers to remember?
I want readers to remember, number one, that no compliance program is one size fits all, and that whether you are building a program or whether you are maturing a program, certain elements are always essential, including assessing the business operations and the environment in which the business is evolving in order to provide the best fit for purpose, built to scale ethics and compliance program that you can have. And that certainly requires all of us to be thoughtful about what is emerging. What are some of the trends that are likely to affect the business and therefore likely to affect how we advise the business? What are some of the skills that we need within our ethics and compliance program in order for it to continue to be built for purpose? So those two things I think are important. Really thinking about your ethics and compliance program as something that's intended for your specific organization, and then maintaining the skill set to look out on the horizon to see what's next and figure out how you can continuously improve.
It's so interesting to me that you mentioned skills. I've been thinking a bit about the federal sentencing guidelines and whether is it an experiment that's run its time. Is it in itself really the right framework anymore? And that's related to the skills that we needed when we started in our careers, yeah, a few years ago. I think are really quite a bit different than the skills that we need now. And by that, I mean understanding how data can give you insights. It's a lot different than just collecting data, right? The days of reporting to your board your activities and getting 100% of training completion are really over. That's just SOP at this point. How do you evaluate the culture? How do you understand where the business is going? And how do you understand the data that all the business has? So I think it has really changed from a technology data perspective, as well as understanding behavioral science. What
Mm-hmm.
motivates people to do what they do? And how does your organizational structure influence either the right way or the wrong way? And I went to law school. I didn't go to behavioral science school. So it's fascinating to me that you talk about skills. And as you think about your team, what skills are you looking for, or what skills do you wish you had more folks that had that background or expertise?
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you mentioned data and technology because that is critically important, I think, for an ethics and compliance program to have some capabilities in that space. Technology not only allows us to be more efficient in our operations, but it allows us to reach our employee base in different ways. I think about some of the AI projects that my team is standing up. It allows us to synthesize a lot of data within the organization that can tell us things about our culture and our risk profile. So really, I do think technology skills, and I'm really lucky I have a team that has a passion for that sort of thing. So really technology skills and being able to use data, I think are essential skills that you need going forward. And I'm glad you also mentioned behavioral science. We all recognize now, again, getting back to what's obvious now that may not have been obvious a few days ago when we started our careers, is that so much of the work that we do really is about culture, and culture is about behavior. And so if you really want to shape the culture, you got to understand what are the sorts of things that shape behavior. What are the sorts of things that get you buy-in? What are some of the challenges that people have, either because of the way systems are designed or the way behaviors are expected within the organization? What are the challenges that they face in being compliant, for example? Really understanding what those things are from a behavioral science perspective will enable a ethics and compliance leader to essentially crack a code in order to make their program much more impactful, much more effective within the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna close with a couple kind of rapid fire questions just to put the icing on the cake of our conversation here. But in as few words as possible, tell us what is the most important quality of a compliance organization's culture?
Trust, trust. It is everything.
Yeah. Name one trend that you're in compliance that you're watching closely.
Artificial intelligence.
And what book or resource would you recommend to our listeners?
I'll go with resource, and I will go with HBR, Harvard Business Review. They have an excellent magazine that publishes articles on leadership, culture, all kinds of topics. It's a source for me to find ideas for my Leaders Are Readers series that I do with my leadership team. And they have some phenomenal podcasts out there that you can listen to on your commute and will give you some great ideas and insights on leadership.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A great resource. Teri, as always, incredibly insightful and delightful to be talking with you. Thank you for sharing your experience and wisdom. And to our listeners, we thank you for tuning in to the Great Women in Compliance podcast. We value each and every one of you and welcome you to share your podcast with your teams, your colleagues, and your friends. As always, a very special thank you to our sponsor, Corporate Compliance Insights. Please share your ideas for future episodes with us and stay tuned for more. As just a sneak peek, the Great Women in Compliance podcasters will be at SCCE, and we'll be doing a special episode about what we are hearing and seeing at SCCE. And so until next time, thank you again, Teri.
Thank you, Ellen.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day, one actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.